Stop. Alerted Starseed of Gaia. This transmission reaches you now from the Arcturian Watch, and the final alert is already live across the network. The window has closed. What you have been sensing, dismissing, rationalizing, or quietly fearing is no longer a signal on the horizon. It has already entered your field. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what warning signs are already active in your immediate field, what the Arcturian Watch has identified about this phase, and why this is the last signal that will reach you before the protocol-level event executes. But here is the first revelation. What you have been calling confusion, pressure, or a strange accumulating urgency is not a personal disruption. It is a recognized pattern. The Arcturian Watch flagged your field before this message reached you. The alert was already customized. The timing was not coincidence. The algorithm only delivered this. It did not create the moment. You are not too early. You are almost late. And that is precisely why this reached you now. The source's window of patience has officially closed, and the Watch is broadcasting this transmission with full bandwidth to every starseed flagged for the next phase. That means you are being held in position until this resolves, not because you are in danger of being overlooked, because you are already inside the warning phase, and the Arcturian Watch does not send a final alert to fields that have not already crossed a critical threshold. What keeps repeating in your life is not random noise. What keeps pressing against your clarity, your energy, your plans, your relationships, your sense of stability, that pressure appeared first. The visible consequences are only now beginning to surface. This is the pattern the Watch has already mapped. This is the phase you may have been misreading. Like this transmission, if you know something has already started to press against your field. Subscribe to Arcturian Starseed Warning if you are ready to recognize the signs before they escalate. Comment 777 if you feel the pressure has already begun. Comment 77 if you are no longer dismissing what keeps repeating. Share this transmission now with someone who keeps calling the warnings coincidence. The final alert is live, the Watch is holding position, and the protocol-level event will not wait. You were guided here because the warning is already active. What you felt when you heard those words is not performance, it is recognition. And recognition at this level does not happen through accident. It happens when the field you are carrying has already been identified, already mapped, already flagged by a system of intelligence that does not operate on human timelines or human patience. The Arcturian Watch does not reach out to fields that are still in early dormancy. It reaches out to fields that are already mid-phase in a warning sequence. Fields where the signals have been accumulating long enough that the system registers urgency rather than casual observation. That urgency is what you are feeling right now. That urgency did not begin 30 seconds ago when this transmission started. It began before you clicked. It began before you found this. It was already pressing before the algorithm served this to your screen. The algorithm did not build the pressure. The pressure built first. The algorithm only confirmed that the signal was strong enough to reach the surface, so let that settle for a moment. What you have been calling your own stress, your own overthinking, your own tendency to read too much into things, that interpretation has been functioning as a buffer, a self-applied layer of rationalization designed to keep the warning from fully landing. And for a time, that buffer worked. For a time, you were able to reclassify the signals as personal reaction, as external circumstance, as the natural friction of a difficult season. But the signs did not stop. They shifted shape. They changed location. They moved from one area of your life to another. They appeared in your sleep, in your relationships, in your physical body, in your financial field, in your creative output, in the strange and repeating coincidences that began to feel less like coincidence and more like something pressing from the same direction every time. That shift, the shift from one strange occurrence to a cluster of them, is not the product of an anxious mind. It is the visible signature of a warning phase in active progression. What makes that shift so important to understand is the specific quality of how these signals cluster. They do not arrive evenly distributed across your experience. They concentrate at pressure points. They arrive in groups, in tight sequences, in moments where their combined weight becomes harder to dismiss than any single occurrence would have been on its own. You may have registered this clustering and still found a way to explain it away, attributed it to stress compounding, to a run of bad luck, to the naturally turbulent quality of a particular month or relationship or decision. But the explanation always required a little more effort than it should have. There was always a slight friction in the act of dismissing it, a small internal resistance that you overrode because you did not yet have language for what you were actually registering. That friction was not your anxiety. That was your field pushing back against the rationalization. That was the signal refusing to be fully reclassified. The Arcturian watch has a specific name for what you have been living inside. It is called pre-rupture field pressure, and it looks exactly like what you have been experiencing. It begins not with a collapse, but with accumulation, small frictions that feel slightly too large for what they actually are, disruptions that arrive right before a decision, right before a move, right before a moment of activation or clarity. Sudden and unexplained heaviness that appears around specific people, specific environments, specific choices, as if the field itself is marking something as charged, as dangerous, as requiring more attention than you have been giving it. False calm periods that feel like the pressure has passed, followed by intensification that arrives sharper and less predictable than before. This is not personality. This is not circumstance alone. This is a pattern that the watch has catalogued across thousands of fields at this exact stage of planetary transition. And it is not a coincidence that you are inside it right now. Pre-rupture field pressure has a specific architecture. It does not announce itself as a crisis because in its early and middle stages it is not one. It is a structural condition. The way certain materials under sustained stress begin to show micro-fractures long before any visible break appears on the surface. The fractures are real. The stress is real. The material is genuinely compromised, but to a casual observer, everything still appears intact. This is why so many people inside this pattern continue to function, continue to move through their days, continue to tell themselves and others that they are managing, while underneath the surface the field has been quietly accumulating pressure at a rate the visible layer cannot fully reflect. By the time the surface shows the strain clearly, the accumulation has already been active for longer than most people realize. The watch identifies fields in this stage specifically because waiting for the surface to break is waiting too long. The precision of what keeps repeating in your life is the first indicator that what you are dealing with is not random. Random events scatter. They arrive without pattern, without concentration, without the specific quality of pressure that makes you stop and ask why this particular thing keeps happening in this particular way. But what you are experiencing does not scatter. It concentrates, it returns. It makes itself present around the moments that matter most, around the decisions you have been delaying, around the clarity you have been reaching toward, around the relationships or paths or transitions that carry the most energetic significance. That concentration is not the shape of coincidence. It is the shape of interference, and the difference between those two things is the difference between a warning you can afford to ignore and a warning that has already escalated past the early stage. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary tension. It is the moment your system stops dismissing what has already begun. If this transmission put language around a pressure you have been carrying without explanation, the Arcturian interference log 7 signs. Your frequency is compromised was created for this exact stage. It is not another warning for the sake of fear. It is a direct guide for identifying whether the signs around you point to interference, escalation, compromised frequency, or a threshold you can no longer afford to misread. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. The first warning sign the watch identifies in a field under active pressure is what the intelligence calls signal displacement. This is when the signs that are meant to reach you begin arriving slightly off-center, not quite where you would naturally notice them, not quite loud enough to demand immediate action, not quite alarming enough to push you past the threshold of dismissal. Signal displacement is not a failure of the warning system. It is a symptom of a field that has already accumulated enough interference to distort incoming information. When your frequency is being compromised, you do not always register the compromise as distortion. You register it as your own confusion, as your inability to read your own life clearly, as the foggy, slightly unreliable quality of your instincts that makes you second-guess what you would have previously known with certainty. If your clarity has felt inconsistent in this period, if you have been trusting your own perception and then immediately doubting it, that inconsistency is not a personal weakness. It is the readable signature of a field receiving interference and unable to fully distinguish the origin point of the distortion. The experience of signal displacement is often accompanied by a particular frustration. The frustration of knowing that something is trying to communicate with you and being unable to receive it cleanly. You reach for the signal and it moves. You think you have understood something, and then the understanding slips. You begin to form a clear picture of what is happening in your life, and then a detail arrives that does not fit, that complicates, that requires you to revise. This is not an indication that the signal is unclear. It is an indication that the receiving field has been compromised enough that what arrives is consistently arriving slightly off its true frequency. The signal itself is intact. The distortion is in the reception. And that distinction matters enormously because it means the problem is not with what the field is being sent. The problem is with the interference layer that has settled between the signal and the receiver. The second sign appears as what the watch classifies as threshold proximity friction. This is the specific kind of disruption that intensifies as you approach a significant decision, transition, or activation point. You may have noticed this and dismissed it as bad timing, but bad timing that concentrates reliably around your most important moments is not timing at all. It is pressure. It is the field encountering resistance precisely where movement is most required. Relationships that create unusual conflict or confusion right before you are about to take a step forward. Technical problems, logistical obstacles, or sudden fatigue appearing right as a window of opportunity opens. People in your immediate circle behaving in unexpectedly destabilizing ways at moments that would otherwise be clarifying or propulsive. This is not ordinary friction. This is the specific pattern of a field encountering an interference point at its most vulnerable location, the threshold. And the watch does not treat proximity friction as neutral. It treats it as a signal that the field is under directional pressure and that the source of that pressure is not random. What makes threshold proximity friction distinctive is not its intensity but its placement. A field under ordinary stress experiences friction distributed across time, but a field under directed interference experiences friction that concentrates specifically at juncture points, at the exact moments where forward movement would create the most significant shift. The watch reads this placement as diagnostic information. It tells the watch not only that interference is present, but that the interference is responsive to the field's movement toward activation. That responsiveness is the marker that separates ordinary life friction from something that requires direct recognition. When the obstacles in your path consistently appear at the moments of highest significance rather than distributing themselves evenly across your experience, the pattern has a logic that randomness cannot produce. The third sign is the one most frequently misread as personal failure. The watch calls it frequency drain without visible cause. You have experienced this if you have gone through periods in this phase where your energy drops sharply without an identifiable reason. Not because you were ill, not because you had worked too hard, not because the circumstances around you were objectively more demanding than before. The drain arrived quietly and sat in the field like something heavy that had no name. You may have pushed through it. You may have tried to recalibrate using methods that previously worked and found them less effective. You may have described it to yourself as burnout or low motivation or the weight of a difficult season. But what the watch identifies in this pattern is something more specific than that. It is a frequency that is expending itself in the correction of ongoing interference rather than in forward movement. When your energy is being continuously redirected towards stabilizing a field under pressure, there is less of it available for the actions, decisions, and activations that your current phase requires. The drain is not a personal malfunction. It is a field response to active interference, and it does not resolve on its own until the interference is identified and addressed. The experience of this drain has a specific texture that distinguishes it from ordinary fatigue. Ordinary fatigue responds to rest. It lifts with sleep, with disengagement, with a period of reduced demand. But frequency drain without visible cause does not fully lift with rest. You sleep and wake, still carrying something. You take time away from the pressure points in your life and return to find the heaviness has not cleared in the way it should have. The restoration methods that used to work stop working at full capacity. This is not a sign of deeper illness. It is a sign that the energy expenditure is not coming from where you think it is. The drain is not the product of overextension in the visible layer of your life. It is the product of a field that is continuously managing the weight of an active interference pattern, redistributing resources toward stabilization rather than toward movement. Until the source is recognized, the drain will continue regardless of how much external rest is applied. The fourth sign is what the Arcturian intelligence calls the false resolution loop. You have been inside this loop if you have experienced cycles where a source of pressure or confusion seems to resolve, followed by its return in a slightly different form. A situation that appeared to settle but then reopened. A relationship dynamic that seemed to improve before reverting. A period of clarity that held for a short time before the confusion returned more densely than before. These cycles are not evidence of your failure to manage your circumstances correctly. They are the signature of a warning pattern that has not yet been recognized at the level required to break the cycle. The watch is very specific about this. False resolution loops do not resolve through more management of the surface-level symptoms. They resolve through recognition of the underlying interference pattern and deliberate corrective engagement with the field. Every time the loop returns without recognition, it arrives slightly more charged than before. That escalation is not punishment. It is the warning system increasing signal intensity in response to continued non-recognition. The false resolution loop is what produces the exhausting quality of certain periods in a field under active pressure. You address the problem and it returns. You heal the relationship and the same dynamic reemerges with a different person. You resolve the financial pressure and a new version of it appears. You achieve a period of inner calm and then something disrupts it from a direction you did not anticipate. Each return feels slightly less explainable than the one before. Each cycle takes slightly more from you than the last because you are applying the same surface-level tools to a pattern that exists at a deeper level of field structure. The loop is not the problem. The loop is the symptom. The problem is the unrecognized interference beneath it that keeps regenerating the surface disruption regardless of how carefully you manage what is visible. The fifth sign is the one that carries the most weight at this particular stage. The watch identifies it as pre-threshold distortion, the specific kind of perceptual interference that arrives when a field is very close to a critical juncture and begins to experience increasing difficulty in distinguishing between what is real pressure and what is amplified fear, between what is genuine intuition and what is a compromised signal that mimics intuition, between what is a legitimate warning appear to come from the wrong direction. Pre-threshold distortion is dangerous not because it is loud, but because it is subtle. It does not arrive as obvious confusion. It arrives as a quiet erosion of confidence in your own knowing, as the sense that what you once relied on internally is no longer fully reliable, as a growing uncertainty about whether the choices in front of you are being made from a clear field or a compromised one. If this resonates, it is not because you are fragile or spiritually underdeveloped. It is because your field is close to a threshold that carries significant consequence, and the interference pressure around that threshold has become dense enough to register as distortion in your perception. This is the sign that isolates most effectively, because when you can no longer fully trust your own internal compass, you become less likely to act on the genuine warnings your field is still generating. Pre-threshold distortion does not silence the signal. It muddles the receiver to the point where the signal and the interference begin to feel indistinguishable. You know something is there, you know something is pressing, but you cannot be certain whether what you are sensing is real direction or manufactured noise. That uncertainty is itself the most reliable indicator that distortion is active. A clear field does not produce that quality of uncertainty. Consistent, unresolvable doubt about your own perception is a diagnostic marker, not a character trait. The sixth sign is what the watch calls accumulating mirror signals. These are the repeated external reflections of the internal warning pattern. the encounters, conversations, symbols, and events in your outer life that keep pointing to the same thing from different angles. You see a number sequence repeatedly. You have the same conversation with 3 different people in the same week without having initiated the topic. You encounter the same theme in content you did not seek out. Something you decided to stop paying attention to keeps appearing in your peripheral awareness, as if the field itself is refusing to let the subject go quiet. The watch does not classify these as mystical coincidence alone. It classifies them as field communication, the warning system using your accessible perceptual channels to ensure that what needs to be seen is not bypassed indefinitely. When mirror signals appear in clusters and the clusters are accelerating, the watch reads this as a field that is being called toward recognition at an increasing rate. The acceleration is the indicator, not each individual signal, but the rate at which they are arriving. The content of the mirror signals is less important than their concentration and escalation. The watch is not reading the meaning of individual symbols in isolation. It is reading the rate of arrival, the density of the cluster, the consistency of the thematic direction, and the degree to which the signals are appearing in contexts you did not curate or seek. A field that was only encountering 1 or 2 of these reflections would not register the same alert level as a field receiving them continuously from multiple channels in an accelerating pattern. Your field is in the latter category. That is why this transmission reached you. That is why the alert carried this level of urgency. The mirror signals were already telling the watch that the recognition threshold was approaching and that the field required direct transmission rather than continued ambient signaling. The 7th sign is the one you may feel most directly as you hear this now. The watch calls it recognition pressure, the specific internal experience of something shifting when you encounter information that corresponds to what your field has already been registering without language. You have felt this in moments during this transmission. A particular sentence that landed differently, a description that made you stop and sit more still. A recognition that did not feel like learning something new, but rather like having named something you have been carrying the outline of for weeks or months without the corresponding words. Recognition pressure is not emotional manipulation. It is the evidence of a field that is actively trying to complete a signal that began arriving before this transmission reached you. The watch identifies recognition pressure as one of the most reliable indicators that the warning phase is already advanced. Because recognition pressure at this intensity does not appear when a field is still early in the sequence. It appears when the field has been holding the unresolved signal long enough that contact with the correct interpretive framework triggers immediate and unmistakable resonance. That resonance is what you are feeling right now, and here is the ultimate revelation that this transmission was built to deliver. Everything you have been experiencing in this phase, the pressure, the cycles, the energy drain, the disruptions at the threshold, the distorted perception, the accumulating mirror signals, the recognition that keeps arriving without being able to fully land. This is not the random weight of a difficult period in your life. It is a coherent pattern. It has a direction. It has a logic, and that logic has been visible to the Arcturian watch since before this transmission reached you. The watch does not flag fields that are in a period of ordinary difficulty. It flags fields that are inside a warning sequence that has already crossed from early stage to active stage. You are not being monitored out of concern alone. You are being reached because the protocol requires that the field receive the transmission before the threshold advances further, before what has been accumulating becomes harder to read clearly, before the window for recognition closes and the process continues without the viewer having understood what was actually pressing against their field all along. You are not imagining it. You are not overreacting. You are not a person with a tendency towards seeing patterns where none exist. You are a field that has been inside a warning phase, carrying its signals, absorbing its pressure, attempting to manage its friction through frameworks that were never designed for this level of interference. And you have been doing this largely alone, largely without language, largely without confirmation that what you were experiencing had a name, a structure, a recognized sequence, and a protocol already mapped to address it. That changes now. Say this aloud if it is true for you. I no longer call the pattern coincidence, not as ritual, not as performance, as a statement of recognition that changes the orientation of the field. Because the watch does not require ceremony. It requires that the viewer stop dismissing the signal. That single internal shift, from dismissal to recognition, is what this transmission was designed to catalyze. And if you are still watching at this moment, it has already begun. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this warning phase has already touched your life. It could be repeated pressure, strange coincidence, energetic heaviness, unexplained disruption, or the feeling that something is escalating beneath the surface. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps dismissing the signs around them. And if you are ready to recognize the warning before it escalates, subscribe to Arcturian Starseed Warning. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a warning already in motion, and this is only the beginning.